All right. So, just as a little recap of where we are today with the medical system against the rest of us. The medical system, I told you earlier, is suing RFK and the administration because they took the COVID vaccine away as a mandatory vaccine for children and for pregnant women. So that's what the lawsuit is. The lawsuit says, no, you must force children and pregnant women to take the COVID vaccine because that's for some reason, I guess, beneficial to the medical system. So that's where that lawsuit is. And then the secondary lawsuit from the American Association of Pediatrics, which is a big union that all the pediatricians are in, is also suing to remove all non-medical exemptions from any vaccine ever. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to say you can't object to any vaccine ever, and you have to give the kids the COVID vaccine multiple times throughout their childhood, starting with the women when they're pregnant. This is the lawsuit we have going on right now. So, and I have tried real hard. I think that if you go back and you look at all the things I've said, to say that, this isn't the medical doctor's fault. The medical doctors are great people. They were just lied to. I get it to a degree because they went to medical school and they were lied to the entire time and told that, polio and, Hep B and, all these the MMR, like all these things, if kids don't get them, they're going to die. All these things that they were lied to and said they're totally safe and no one's ever been hurt by them ever, which is a lie. But they believe it. And okay, cool. Like, I get that. We've got some re-education to do. Any doctor who vaccinates a child for with the COVID vaccine, at this point in time, I'm just going to go ahead and say is a terrible person. We saw the world, for a while without the COVID vaccine, and then we saw the world with the COVID vaccine. We watched people literally die on camera as they got the injection. We watched comedians talking about it and die on stage. We've looked at all the people who've had the heart attacks and the strokes. We've looked at the giant number of increase in myocarditis in children and athletes and stuff like that, like 5,000-6,000% increase. Like, this is a massive, massive, obvious issue that the COVID vaccine is not only does it not work, it's admitted that it doesn't work. It doesn't prevent COVID. It doesn't reduce the symptoms. It does nothing beneficial as far as COVID goes. And it has this giant list of things, including stillbirth, miscarriage, death, sudden adult death syndrome, which is SADS, which is SIDS as well. We have all of these massive issues with it. And yet our medical system is now saying, no. We should force all babies to take it, and we should force all pregnant women. Now, again, remember, you can Google this. The rates of miscarriage, the rates of stillbirth, where the baby dies in utero, there's something wrong with the baby, the baby dies. These two went up massively with the COVID vaccine. You look at the same women, same time period. Once you got the vaccine, once you didn't, we see a massive rise in stillbirths and miscarriages. And then we've seen zero positive effect as far as not getting COVID, having COVID be less severe, or not transmitting COVID with the COVID vaccine. So it's effectively has zero functionality in the positive market. It has this massive amount of negative. However, our medical system is still forcing you to give it to your kids. It's still forcing you to give it to pregnant women, or else you can't go to school, can't do this, can't do that. Insurance isn't going to cover X, Y, Z. This is where we're at. And so when people are like, I don't know, maybe the MMR is good, maybe it's bad, I don't know. Like, the medical system really wouldn't do anything that's going to hurt us this bad. Yeah, they are. Like, you now have to argue that the COVID vaccine is both safe and effective. You actually think the COVID vaccine decreases your chance of getting COVID and doesn't have any negative side effects. That's what you have to argue for you to be like, no, the medical system is right in this category. So this kind of brings me back to my whole point. Like, in Texas right now, they're voting to remove the access to any type of cannabis product, any type of THC product, any type of hemp product, anything that might have anything in there, because they said they're super dangerous. They're not. Like, I did a TED Talk on this. If you're going to say the standard is alcohol is safe, cigarettes are safe, That's our line. That's our limit. Like alcohol and tobacco are safe. Anything that's more dangerous than this, you can't have. Well, then cannabis would definitely be legal because it's safer than alcohol in a variety of ways. What's going on right now is that we're letting the government tell us what we can put in our bodies and what we can't put in our bodies, which then allows the government to think that they have the authority to tell us what we have to put in our bodies. So this is where this is all going. This is where this is. And so this isn't necessarily like, I don't care. If you want to go take the COVID vaccine, knock yourself out. I think you should have that right. I think it's stupid, and I would never tell anybody to do it. But if you want to do it, I will think you should have the right to go do it because it's your body and you can do whatever you want to with it. However, the government doesn't feel that way. And that's one of the big issues we've kind of gotten into. And this is where I think COVID really should have brought out was who owns our bodies? Who can tell us what we have to do and what we can't do with our own bodies? Because right now the government thinks they own your body. They think that they can dictate what you have to put in it, what you can't put in it, and that type of thing. So that's a thing that I think we should all kind of step back and look at wait, you're telling me that alcohol is safe, cigarettes are safe, tobacco, cigarettes are safe, but it's such a risk to my health using cannabis that I can't have access to it. And if I do find it and I do hold on to it, it's worth 180 days in jail because it's so dangerous to me that you have to protect me from me by putting me in prison for 180 days. Okay. All right. That's where Texas is at right now with cannabis. But that's also where we're at with all the vaccines. Everybody's coming out and being like, oh, well, you have to do this or you can't go to school. Why? Why? Because here at the end of the day, if the vaccines work the way that everybody says they do, the way the medical system says they do, that person is now completely immune. Once you've taken the vaccine, you can't get polio. You can't get hepatitis B. You can't get COVID. You can't get these things once you've had the vaccine. So why does everybody have to get vaccinated? Wouldn't we just see the kids who got vaccinated are healthy and safe and the kids who didn't aren't? Well, why can't we do that? Because they were all herd immunity, like they made this up. Like when you start looking at practices, and I realize that this information has not come out yet, and so it's just because I have access to information other people don't, because I have friends who are running these practices. If you look at in the pediatric practices, the ones who don't force vaccinate, the ones who give up the $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year, maybe $1 million a year in the kickbacks from the vaccine industry by not vaccinating everybody, by allowing choice, what you actually see is that the kids who are not vaccinated, on average, are substantially healthier than the kids who got vaccinated. ADD, ADHD, asthma, autism, all these type of things, behavioral problems, allergies, all sorts of things are way higher in the vaccinated group than they are in the non-vaccinated group. We haven't done these studies officially yet, because once we do them officially, then it's going to really kind of turn around like, why are we vaccinating? There have been zero actual research studies on vaccines, whether they're effective or whether they're safe. Now, we've been talking about this for a while, and people are like, oh, you're crazy, you're crazy. Well, everybody's come out. The CDC's come out, the HHS has come out, and been like, yeah, there's no studies. None. Like, we're trying to find some, and we haven't found any. Like, they will do studies on like 150, 200 people for a week, and then be like, nobody died, everything's okay, which is not how you do a study. They didn't do placebo-based. They didn't do longitudinal studies, which means they didn't do it for very long, like years at a time. These studies have not been done. And the funny thing is that it wouldn't be that hard, because they could easily do what would, again, not be a phenomenal study as far as studies go, but they could just reach out to all of the pediatricians who don't force vaccinate. And they could be like, how many of these kids are, sick? How many of these kids have allergies and this and that? They could look at the vaccine population and go, how many do we have here? And that could be a preliminary piece of the study. And then they could just go through and be like, all right, let's see who's going to consent to this. We're going to fully vaccinate over here. We're going to not vaccinate over here. We're going to do an actual study. We're going to be like, all right, what do these kids eat? How much exercise do they get? A couple contributing factors, and then where socioeconomic function, and then how do they end up? And that would be a very, very legitimate study. The problem is, and there's a lot of people on both sides who'd be willing to do that. The people who are 100% for vaccines, and so you'd be like, hey, would you let us just follow your kids and see how healthy they are? Great. And there's a lot of people on the other side who won't vaccinate their kids. Then be like, all right, cool. You don't have to vaccinate your kids. Can we watch and see how healthy they are? Like, this is not a giant problem. And I bet a lot of people will be like, yeah, that's fine, because there's people on both sides who are arguing our side's healthier, our side's better way. And so like, prove it. Like, let's follow your kids, from birth until they're 20, and let's see which side's healthier. This is not a horribly difficult study to do. And my guess is that we have the information now. We could just go through and like grab people and be like, hey, you didn't vaccinate your kids. It'd be pretty easy to just contact all the Kairos, all the natural health people and be like, hey, since you guys didn't vaccinate your kids, let's get the information, let's get the data. The only problem with that is that when the government comes asking for lists, you always 100% of the time need to run away from it. So, if there's some things you're like, well, I don't know if our government would do horrible, terrible things. There's a whole list of stuff. The number one thing that I would tell you to go back and look at is, you can go back and look at COVID, what they did during COVID, all the lockdowns, all the, immediate, removal of First Amendment rights, religious rights, personal liberties, all those sort of things. You go back and look at the Tuskegee experiments. I don't know if you're familiar with this. In the Tuskegee experiments, what they actually did was they took a whole bunch of Black people in the South in Tuskegee, and they told them they were getting vaccines to help them be healthy, and they injected them with syphilis and watched them die. That's 100% what the study was. They were like, what's end stage look like? How quickly do people die? Like, how quickly does it spread? Like, that was it. That was it. They injected, they poisoned all these people with syphilis just to watch people die and to study, how people die and how it spreads in the community. This was legitimately what they did. Like, go look it up, Tuskegee experiments. So this is kind of where we're at. I just want to make sure everybody was aware, if you're not following stuff like I do, your government is trying to force as many things on you as going to make you sick as possible, because they're all tied in together. The FDA, the CDC, the NIH, the pharmaceutical companies are all tied in together. They're all making money off each other. They're all creating power off of each other. And the idea is that if we can keep everybody sick, if we can keep everybody, just a low level of miserable, then they can sell drugs to them forever. They can sell the SSRIs, which we know don't work. They can sell the statin drugs, which don't have anything to do with it. They can sell they sell the antidepressants. They can sell the benzodiazepines. They can sell the energy stuff. They can sell all the things. As long as you're miserable, you're a market they can sell to, because if you're not miserable, they have nothing to sell you. And so the goal is to make as many people miserable and sick as they can, so they can sell as much as they can. That's legitimately what this is. And the argument that I'm wrong is real hard when you're trying to mandate that everybody get a vaccine that we all know is terrible. Like, you have to argue that the COVID vaccine is safe and effective to then be willing to say we should force it on children and pregnant women. That's the argument you have to make. Forget about all the other vaccines. Right now, you've got to make the argument that the COVID vaccine is super safe and super effective at blocking and preventing COVID-19 spread and the problems that it creates. You have to say that it's completely safe and it's effective in order to say we should force everyone to put this in their children. That's where we're at. So, I'm hoping people will start to come over to the side of, no, we should not be forcing people to put things in their body or forcing people not to put things in their body. Like, the government should no longer have the right to own our bodies. We should get to own our bodies and tell the government what we want to do with our bodies. Like, I think we should start having this conversation, because every single time the government's been trying to, help us decide, they've done terrible things. During Prohibition, you can look at this up too. During Prohibition, because the government wanted to show how terrible alcohol was, they poisoned a bunch of alcohol. And then when people got sick or died, they were like, see, alcohol is super bad for you. You shouldn't have it. And this is why. Look at all the people who died, even though the government was the one who poisoned the alcohol. So, this is kind of where they're at. The big thing in Texas, the reason why they're pushing so hard, and the reason why they're telling everybody that cannabis is going to kill you and it's terrible and it's horrible, even though it's not, is because they're getting money from, they're trying to protect alcohol and tobacco and medical cannabis. That's it. They're trying to give some of their friends a monopoly on all of the cannabis in the state. The only problem with that is that once you're on that list, they've already been told that if you're using cannabis for any problems that you have, they're going to take away your concealed carry rights and take away your Second Amendment rights, so you don't have access to firearms anymore. That's what that list is going to do. And we've already been told this. We already know this, but they're trying to grow that list so they have a reason to take people's guns away, and they have a list of who all is on cannabis. So, kind of take a stock of where everything is. If you live in Texas, call your representatives and be like, we don't like this. You guys need to back up off of us and quit acting like you own our bodies, and don't vote for the Senate Bill 4 or 5, whatever it is. So it went through once, and Abbott was like, no, I don't want to do this. It's going to take away, a lot of veterans are using this for pain. A lot of veterans are using this for PTSD. A lot of people are using this for sleep. A lot of the people are using this for pain, so they don't have to use opioids and things like that. And so he vetoed it, and they turned right around. They're like, all right, we still want to ban it because we're still getting paid to ban it. So we're going to try to get this thing banned. So that's what's going on. Your rights are being taken away from you. Your body is being handed over more to the state, not to you, because the politicians in Texas are getting paid off to do it. So go check, go see who's, Dan Patrick and those guys, major donations from all the alcohol and tobacco groups. Medical cannabis is giving a whole lot of money to this as well. So, that's where we're at. So, just as an FYI, if you guys are not a little bit angry about that, start figuring out what's going on, because you cannot make the argument that the COVID vaccine for babies is beneficial to babies in any way. And you can make the argument real easily that the COVID vaccine is highly dangerous to all people, babies, mothers, everybody. So that's kind of where we're at on this fight. If you guys are looking to join the fight, get in, spread this, send this message to everybody. Make sure they start looking this stuff up and they start becoming aware of what our government's trying to do to you. Anyway, you guys have a fantastic day. Thanks for your time. Talk to you later.